We are seekers, chasing those hidden masterpieces. We read them, we cherish them, we tell everyone to try them, and they nod politely and go back to Brandon Sanderson. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you saying something? I've just been thinking about books lately. I do that a lot. Specifically how, I wish there were more gems out there. It just seems like we're always talking about the same ones over and over again. I mean, we've got, of course, the crown jewels, right? Dune, Lord of the Rings, Frankenstein, To Kill a Mockingbird, you name it, right? We agree. Those are amazing, but you can't reread those and feel the same as if you'd never read it before. There has to be more out there. So I was sorting through my Goodreads, trying to see for a baseline what the most popular book is that I have read, just to get an idea how I should put this list together. And surprise, surprise, it is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone with 11 million ratings. That's right, 11 million. That's more than the entirety of the city of London put together, probably London and its suburbs. Just think every baby and gran in the London area has read this book. And that's just on Goodreads. That's just the people who have actually rated it. I have at least 4 or 5 people in my circle who have read this book and don't have Goodreads accounts. So that is a lot of readers taking in the same story. Now, I love Harry Potter, but I was kind of wondering, how can I come up with a list of recommendations for books that not so many people have read that are just as fantastic, just as immersive? And so I thought if I could just take less than 1% of that 11 million, that would be a pretty good range. So that took us down to 100,000 ratings on Goodreads. That was my threshold. Now you're probably saying to yourself, hey, Peter, man, 100,000 ratings, that's still a lot of ratings. And you'd be right. But most of the recommendations we're going to go through today are not that many. Some are as few as 15, 20,000 ratings. On average, we're talking about 40,000 ratings on Goodreads, which, to put into perspective, more people are buying single tickets to go see college football game than are going to be reading these books. With that said, let's get going. So let's start off with a question. What if grief and your imagination could open up an actual doorway to a land where hope still lives, but where nightmare and dreams overlap? Would you take that chance? That's a question that our protagonist, David, needs to answer in The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. Now, this book has one of the most heart-wrenching, beautiful opening lines ever, and I'll read it here. It says, "Once upon a time, for that is how all stories should begin, there was a boy who lost his mother. He had, in truth, been losing her for a very long time." Now, there's a hook for you. Like I said, a little bit dark, to start with, but grief is definitely one of the most universal themes in literature, right? It's something that we all undergo in our life, and we all experience it in different ways. The way David experiences it is through denial and anger and wanting to find a path to restore everything to the way it was. And that's where the danger comes in. His books, his escapes start whispering back to him and leading him down a path where his imagination can pretty much fill in the gaps of what's missing in his life. Now, is that a good thing or is that a terrible thing? That's for you to discover here in this novel, which is fantastic. If you are fans of Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron, but also want a little splash of Pan's Labyrinth, this is the book for you. Fantastic read. You should check it out. Okay, some science fiction for you. And this idea that 6 million years from now, humanity is still chasing connection, still can't outrun this feeling of loneliness that comes to us, even through all of the technologies and the things that are evolving so much faster than humanity itself. This is House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds. Now, the story here follows a family of clones called Shatterlings. They all come from the same human millennia beforehand and share the same core memories of childhood. But once they've been created, they scatter throughout the universe and make new discoveries, and every few millennia come back together to share the stories and put together a database of their existence. Now, something goes terribly wrong at one of the reunions, and that brings into question their own existence and whether or not they actually matter in this giant universe that just keeps moving on, whether they're in it or not. It's about memory, about love, about evolution. Reynolds reminds me why I love science fiction, which is the grand scope of galaxies, the infinity, but that human intimate question of belonging and just what it means to exist. If you want science fiction that is epic in scale, but also a little bit of hard science fiction, but full of heart, this one's one to check out. It leaves you feeling very, very small, but in the best possible way. Okay, next up, a murder mystery trying to be solved by a sarcastic group of detectives in a fantastical city that contains a golem that is having an existential crisis. If you haven't figured it out, it is Feet of Clay by Terry Pratchett. Sure, it's a fantasy procedural book. It's full of dwarves, dragons, golems, but at its heart, it's about identity. It's about social criticism. It's about community, freedom, what it means to actually be alive. You could call it comedic fantasy, but it's so much more than that. It's satire in the smartest way possible. It's about what it means to have a soul while being full of soul itself. Terry Pratchett builds a world full of absurdity and yet finds truth in every corner. Now, full disclosure, this is technically the third book in the series, though arguably you could jump in at any point. You might miss a little bit of context, but not that much. And besides, book one, which is Guards, and book two, Men at Arms, both fantastic, but more than 100,000 ratings, so that it couldn't make it on the list. This one, I think, might be the best, though. All right, so next up is definitely what I would consider one of the strangest books in these recommendations, and that is Perdido Street Station by China Miéville. Now, this is somewhat of a steampunk type of setting that takes place here, and within it, a scientist, unleashes accidentally these creatures upon the city that feed off of thought and dreams. And what follows is one of the most creative and unique types of fantasy novels that I've ever read. The setting here is completely unreal, right? The world building is key to this novel. This is definitely one of those stories where the city itself is more than just a city. It's a character within the novel, and without those intricacies and that building of the surroundings of these characters, it just doesn't have the same resonance. if you're looking for a novel that is just wonderful in terms of exploration, that's this book. Now, this is definitely not an easy read. I would say it's a mix of horror with fantasy, social commentary, and just lots of weird stuff. It's a book that makes you slow down and feel the textures of the world that it is describing. And if you're patient enough with it, it will allow you to just kind of sift on these ideas that he's trying to tell. Also, possibly one of the greatest prose novelists of our time right now. If you're looking for something that is just written exquisitely well, this is the author for you. Check it out. All right, next up, The Old West meets dark fantasy, revenge, redemption, the dusty road. Yes, please. All of that sounds great, right? This is Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. Now, Joe Abercrombie isn't exactly an unknown author. This isn't exactly somebody that isn't talked about in the community. However, this is a book of his that we just don't mention enough. So in Red Country, we follow Shy, a very eccentric, talented young woman whose brother and sister get kidnapped through a raid, and she must follow after them, try to get them back. And the only companion at her side is a grisly mentor who has definitely done and seen terrible things. Abercrombie reimagines fantasy as a Western, muddy, violent, full of regret. It's about people who try to outrun who they used to be, and along the way realize that maybe deep down most of us never really change at all. If Unforgiven met Quentin Tarantino, I don't know, it might look something like this. It's brutal, funny sometimes, deeply human, and kind of a reminder that, grimdark and fantasy also have heart. And I love that in the front here it says, "Imagine The Lord of the Rings as directed by Kurosawa." I think it's a little bit more than that, but for you to judge. A less existential question, but maybe just still a trippy one. What if time itself didn't just move forward, but skipped or repeated itself or just fell apart completely? That's what our characters deal with in Martian Time Slip by Philip K. Dick. On a decaying Martian colony, a boy named Manfred is experiencing time out of sync. Present, past project that I worked on. This was a really fun one. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. I hope to do a lot more of these ones in the future. Wait a minute. I haven't finished this yet. You can't see this yet, but make sure to subscribe if you want to find out more about all bleeding together. And some try to help him. Some try to take advantage of these powers for gain. But reality itself starts to break down around everybody that he interacts with. This is one of my absolute favorite PKD novels, and it often gets, I guess, overshadowed by many of his other big hitters. You might know him from Blade Runner, which the novel is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? You might know him from Man in the High Castle, Ubik, Minority Report, Total Recall. If readers actually make it that far into his list of many books, they often don't make it as far as this one. But this is PKD at his most personal and disorienting, if you ask me. It's about looking at humanity through the lens of mental illness, of capitalism, of loneliness, alienation. It's not really about Mars at all. It's about how fragile our perception of reality can actually be. It's a book about perception, about how no two people truly experience the world in the same way. And it's fantastic. And finally, every kid has that one summer that changes everything about their life. And for young Corey Mackinson, that story happens to be told in Boy's Life by Robert R. McCammon. This is my favorite novel out of all of the ones that I've shared today. Set in 1960s Alabama, this story follows Corey and his father and family after they witness a tragic murder that actually shakes up their entire town. And what follows is partially murder mystery, but mostly coming of age. McCammon blends nostalgia and myth and mystery all through the lens of a child. It captures the absolute awe of what it means to be a kid in a world that's just too big, too complicated, too beautiful, and just a little bit haunting. And if that's your narrator, how reliable can he really be? Think Stand By Me meets Big Fish, but written by Ray Bradbury, with a sprinkle of ghosts and southern magic. And you get one of the most fantastic formulas ever put together on page. If you only pick one book today out of my list, this is the one. Do yourself a favor. It's just incredible. All right, collectors, thank you for joining today. I hope you found something that you want to try out. And if you liked this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. What did I miss? What are some hidden gems that I should check out or that you recommend to others? Let me know. Until next time, have a great one.